What's up, guys? My name's Cody, and this is another UFC betting breakdown. This time for UFC 262, and we got Charles Oliveira taking on Michael Chandler in the main event. That's for the lightweight title. Tony Ferguson taking on Beneil Dariush in the co-main, which is going to be sick. Just a lot of good fights throughout this card. A lot of these cards lately, I've had a lot of UFC debuters, a lot of UFC newcomers in general, but this card's littered with a lot of good talent and names you probably know. So before we get into it, last week we did have a small profit. We had the Tafon versus Park fight going the distance for a unit that cashed, and then we had a unit full of props for the DeLima fight and the Haas fight to go the distance or to go finish inside the distance. Those didn't cash, but then we did have Magny versus Neal going the distance for a full unit. That which did cash. So small, little less than a unit profit, but hey, we'll take it. Profit's profit, just keeping the streak. And getting into this one, I'm still looking for more plays to make. I mean, there's not a whole lot of props that I like on this card, but there is a couple plays I've already made and a couple more that I'm looking at. Before we get into it, if you could leave a like on the video, make sure you leave a comment. Let me know, who you have picked. I just like to go back and forth with you guys about all the picks and shit. That's always fun. Hit me up on Twitter. That's going to be in the caption as well. And then I will be live, as always, for Twitch. Last week I wasn't because I was competing. I also, before that, was getting over COVID. But I still streamed the one before that. But, 100% well. Got cleared before the tournament. Was able to go out there, compete, win a gold medal. Was awesome. My teammates did great, too. Won a bunch of medals themselves. That was great. Thanks for everybody wishing me well and all that. Wanted to throw that in here. Definitely got cleared on Friday, even though I had already been quarantined and symptomless for several days going into that. But once I got cleared, had one day to train, then got to go out there and compete. That was a lot of fun. But before I just ramble on and on, appreciate you guys showing love. Make sure you leave a like on the video, comment, hit me up. Twitch, Twitter, all that good stuff. Let's get into it. First fight of the night, we got Soriano taking on Christos Diagos. And this is Soriano's just moved over to, I think, Sanford MMA. He was training with the Black Zillions. But, he's been looking pretty good lately. It is a little different seeing him coming in. I know it is short notice. It's about a week. So I get that. But just, and you got to do what you got to do to make it in the UFC. But, I would have liked to see him come in at featherweight, which is more his weight class. Diagos is somebody who's had a hard time making 55. And while I think that Sean's pretty, he's not a small guy. He's fought most of his fights at featherweight. And, fighting a grappler. I mean, Diagos kind of, his striking's not bad either. But, fighting somebody who's going to want to take him down and wrestle him, and he might have a decent size advantage, that's something to at least think about. And Sean Soriano coming in, hasn't had the same notable competition as Diagos, but, did lose in his UFC. He went 0-3 in the UFC in his first stint. Did fight Chaz Kelly and Charles Rosa pretty, Kawajiri, those aren't easy fights. And his striking does look like it's getting a lot better. The only thing is, he does show his grappling he can be taken down. Definitely gives his back to stand up sometimes, which sometimes it works on lower level guys, and sometimes against those higher level guys it's not. And those guys are going to take advantage. And Diagos is someone I think could take advantage of that for sure. I mean, he has shown that he can be submitted, and he's lost, 8 fights total? I mean, he's been beat, but, you go through some of these losses. I mean, Jockery close, Charles Oliveira, who we're obviously going to be talking about later, but fighting for the belt. Josh Emmett, Gilbert Burns, I mean, he's fought some good competition, and I mean, even though some of those fights were losses, most of his step ups, it's he's definitely seemed like he's gotten better these past couple of years. And I mean, I get the line. I do think it's like a little bit wide, but I think he should be able to come in here and take Sean down. And the thing is, like, if he doesn't get a lot of takedowns, I could see Sean just, kind of just outlanding him and out-voluming him and just winning rounds closely on the feet. I do think this fight's probably going to go to decision unless, like, maybe Diago can get to the back or, he starts slowing down because we have seen he's had some tough weight cuts. His cardio is not the best. We could see a late stoppage from Soriano, but overall, I would pick this fight to go to decision. But it's not a play. It's really like the least, especially with Diago, since I slightly lean with him by decision. At minus 220, it's kind of like my least favorite fight to bet on tonight, if I'm being honest. So I'm gonna pick Diago. So I'm gonna take him by decision. But let's move on to the next fight. Next up, we got Kevin Aguilar taking on Tucker Lutz. And this is a fight where, I think it's been pretty interesting. I've been seeing Aguilar. I mean, what did he stop at, or what did he start at as a underdog? Let me just take a quick look at that. I try not to do this too much, but I do. I mean, I saw in some books Aguilar at like a solid plus 125, and that's pretty interesting, honestly, because he is taking a guy who is pretty unproven. I mean, he's actually fights nearby. I've actually competed against one of his teammates recently at a tournament. He trains here in Maryland. I actually live in Virginia, but my 2 gyms are in Maryland. But got knocked out in his pro debut, and I mean, obviously that was a long time ago. It was 5 years ago, almost 6, but. It does seem he had his 2 Contender Series fights. He won the first one by decision, so they didn't give him a contract. He had to go back in there. Fought an undefeated guy, but a 5-0, pretty unproven guy himself, like a lot of these Contender Series fights. And while he won, it wasn't like the most overwhelming performance. And I mean, he just hasn't really been tested. We haven't seen him really fight anybody like too notable yet. And I mean, didn't mean to do that. And his striking's pretty legit, but I mean, it's decent, but he's more of a grappler. At least it seems like that's where his real strengths are going to be, like, at his full potential. And we just haven't had to see him. We've been able to see him go in there and outstrike guys, but it's lower level competition. And, I think the way for him to succeed at this, if he's going to fight in the UFC, is going to be, taking people down, trying to get to their back. And Aguilar, while you're seeing these 0-3 in his last 3, you look at the competition he's fighting. Dan Ige and Zubaria. Those are 2 really tough fights, man. I mean, getting finished by Zubaria, you can't, he's a dangerous guy, and that's a high level fight. And people, can always like to hate on Charles Rosa, but pretty decent fighter, and that was a close fight. You could argue it either way. And I mean, going into, the rest of his fights, it's like, even when in LFA and then so far in the UFC, he's been a tough guy to take down. I mean, his takedown defense is pretty solid. I mean, he was able to stuff takedowns on Tukagov, always butcher his name, Ige, Charles Rosa, and them. That fight, Rosa's not the greatest wrestler, but I mean, he's been able to keep these guys from taking him down. And I mean, while you could argue like they're not, a couple of them at least, like, I think Zubaira is a pretty competent wrestler, and then Ige definitely is. But is Tucker on that level of wrestling? Even if he is, he can have some trouble. But we don't even know if he's on that level yet, because we just haven't seen him against like the higher level competition. So overall, man, I think that Aguilar should be the favorite here. I know that lines came down, and on some books he is the favorite now, but I would take Aguilar, honestly. But I would probably, it's like I want to take by decision, but I do think that it's possible you see Tucker just get overwhelmed, just can't get those takedowns. He's getting outstruck on the feet, and I could see a finish happen for Kevin Aguilar. I think he's definitely a live dog, especially if we can get him at, if you can still get him at those underdog prices. Even if you can't, though, I think he's playable. I mean, I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but I'm close. I wanted to see the weigh-ins, and I really just I do think that he's the rightful favorite, and I think probably by decision, but I might just end up playing him straight because I feel like the KO could happen. But if I make that play, I will tweet it out. Getting into the next fight, we got Gina Mazzani taking on Priscilla Cachoeira, and Gina Mazzani, man, she's been pretty like back and forth. I mean, trains over at Extreme Couture. In her last fight, she got back in the win column against Rachel Ostovich, and people. I mean, for rightfully so, 4-5. Obviously, not the greatest, most technical fighter, but her style can give people problems sometimes. I mean, not the greatest grappler, but solid, takedowns, wrestle boxer, and I mean, Mazzani was able to just completely nullify that, out grapple her, make her look amateur out there. And I mean, getting stopped by Julia Avila, Julia's proven while maybe her takedown defense isn't the best, and she's going to have to work on that. That would be like what I'm sure she's working on that hard. Her striking, she's dangerous on the feet. And, I think a loss like that can be forgiven. It's not the biggest deal. The Macy Chazon fight, I mean, Macy's is a big, hard-hitting girl. And, I mean, maybe not the most technical, but, she has definitely been looking better in her last fights. And, this is a pretty tough competition, I mean, she's definitely been fighting in the UFC some tough, I mean, even Sarah McMahon in her UFC debut. I mean, that's not an easy fight. Priscilla Cachoeira, a lot of people know her for that Valentina Shevchenko beatdown she had to take. That was hard to watch. I mean, but at the end of the day, Valentina is so good. It's hard to judge her on that because what would Valentina do to Gina Mazzani? Just saying. But going in there and getting taken down by Molly McCann and out grappled, that wasn't a good look. And the Luana Carolina fight, especially since we have seen, I don't think Carolina's the, super competitive with the top girls in that division. And, getting beat up by her is pretty tough. She did go in there and knock out Shayna Dobson, but it's we kind of knew that about Priscilla. She's not the most technical fighter, doesn't have the best grappling, that's for sure, but she does pack a punch. And sorry, let me turn this light off because it's kind of bothering the green screen. Whoops. And Priscilla definitely has power in her hands. Sorry about that. And, wow, I might have just made it worse. Anyways. But I just feel like in this fight, Gina Mazzani, she is man, that line was crazy at first. I think it's came down a little bit, but minus 215, it was higher than that. And let me see where it was. It was pretty crazy because she was the second biggest favorite on the card. She was up to look at that, minus 300 on BetOnline. That's insane. Yeah, I mean, it came down, but even 2-1, I mean, I do think it's her fight to lose for sure. I mean, Priscilla's shown she can be taken down, she can be out grappled, and I do think Mazzani could get her down, sub her, but I also feel like Priscilla could catch her with something. And on the feet, she's a little bit more. She's a little reckless, but I do think she's the more dangerous fighter on the feet. So I would give her the edge on the feet, but I do think Mazzani should be the favorite. I just honestly, I would have put it at minus 170. I don't think it should be that wide, but I get it. Priscilla's just shown we know exactly how to beat Priscilla. So can Gina go out there with the right game plan? You would think with Extreme Couture, but that's a big if for minus 215. I will take Mazzani though by. I think I would take her by decision, but a submission is definitely on the table. Yeah. Next up, we got Andrea Lee taking on Antonina Shevchenko. Speaking of Valentina, this is her older sister. And in her last fight, man, she went out there and just kind of beat up Lipski and kind of derailed that small hype train that was building. And she looked good in that fight, honestly. I mean, some people I would say that most people were taking that as, oh, Lipski, that's kind of, but like, you know, it was more of a bad look for her than a good look for it was a bad look for Lipski than it was for a good look for Antonina. Sorry, I took one too many dabs before this video. But you know, in that Caitlin Chukagian fight, we did see that, man, like, while her grappling isn't bad, like, once it's on the mat, she can be taken down pretty easily. I mean, Chukagian looked like a D1 wrestler in that fight. I was rewatching that fight last night, and I'm like, oh my, I forgot about this fight. Like, I remember when I watched that live, like, what is happening? I mean, it was smart. She knew that, you know, she was a little green. And she just tested her grappling and realized, okay, you know, this is the spot, path of least resistance. That's how Caitlin Chukagian fights. But, man, it was crazy. She was just taking Antonina down at will. I do feel like in this fight, Andrea Lee can take her down. But, man, I do think that Antonina's, even though Andrea's, you know, she's pretty jacked. I mean, look at this picture right here. But, you know, at the same time, like, I feel like you just see her slow down and the volume slows down so much on the feet. I could see Antonina, like, winning the fight as long as she doesn't, like... I do think she's going to get taken down in that first round, but I feel like it's going to get a little harder for Lee to just come out here and repeatedly take her down in the second and third. I could see her just starting to slow down. And, you know, Shevchenko's going to be throwing a lot more volume on the feet. She just has to keep it there for the second two rounds, and I think she can do that. I'm gonna go with Antonina by decision. What's that line at now? Yeah, she's actually a slight favorite. That line's kind of been flip flopping, but yeah, I think she's the rightful favorite. I think she's gonna be landing the much more volume on the feet. She just has to avoid, like, you know, half those takedowns. As long as she isn't just getting completely out wrestled the entire time, like against that, like in that Caitlin Chukagian fight, I think it's her fight to lose. Next up, we got Jamie Pickett taking on Jordan Wright, and this is another pretty interesting one. Honestly, the line's really close, and I mean, I get it. You know, typically this is a guy I like to fade, Jordan Wright. You know, did burn me in that Ike Villanueva fight, but I still would have loved to see how that played out if that cut. I mean, that was a nasty cut. It was an understandable stoppage, but, you know, that was just, you know, shit happens. But we did have Buckley as a big parlay piece in that fight. I was really confident in that one. Went in there and knocked him out. And, you know, you go through, I mean, you can't not point this out when you talk about Jordan Wright. Look at this. First 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. His first 7 opponents were winless with a combined 31, 36, 0-36 record. 3 of the dudes were making their debut, including when he was 6-0. This guy has fought the softest competition. Now, I'll be honest. When he came and made his debut, I was like, okay, damn it, this guy is a little better than I was honestly kind of hoping for, because that's like bully shit right there. 0-36, like, I get he does the real respectful, like, persona and at the weigh-ins and all that, but, like, dude, I honestly just don't like that. I get it, and that's probably his coach or management making that happen, but come on, man. Like, we see padded records, but this is just, like, outrageous, man. Come on. And I talk about this every time I break down one of his fights, but, like, I just can't help it. Anyways, you know, I gotta admit, and also gotta point this out, too, every time. he went out there and got knocked out in 40 seconds in his first time he fought a legit opponent. That was Anthony Fluffy. It's not like he's some kind of world beater, but Fluffy's pretty legit and went out there and just starched him in 40 seconds. Got a no contest for smoking weed. So, he's fought two decent. I mean, Ike Villanueva, better than the rest of the just cans that he's fought. No disrespect. I mean, I'm sorry, that is disrespectful, but it's the truth. 0-21, 0-10, 0-5, 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-2. Jesus Christ. But his two biggest step ups, he got starched, and the one fighter that was pretty decent that he fought before then, and Ike was, and I just say that because he was in the UFC, Villanueva, a lot of people, kind of like the shit on Ike, but, at least he had some UFC fights, but, overall, I feel like in this fight, one thing that's going to work against Wright is, dude, Pickett's tough, man. Like, Pickett's durable. That's why I thought he might be able to spring the upset against Tefon. Didn't actually bet him, but I was interested when I watched that to see if, I knew that was going to be a step up for Tefon. And, he took him to decision, didn't win, but he definitely proved he's durable. Man, I mean, he got arm triangle by Charles Byrd, 4 years ago. But, hasn't lost by KO in his career. And, super durable guy. And honestly, I feel like Jordan Wright, we haven't had to see his grappling, at a higher level. And, definitely think he's more of a striker for sure. And I would like to see how this fight plays out, on the ground. If Jamie could, maybe get a takedown or get on top through a scramble. And I also just want to see how it plays out when, he's fighting a guy who could take a punch, another big guy, because he's outsized a lot of these guys too. Another big, strong guy who can take a punch and is tough and is going to, go hard, I think Jamie Pickett, could have, the right, build to just, get out of that first round when Wright's the most dangerous. And then, once he starts to slow down, those kicks aren't as fast and explosive, start picking him apart. So I think Jordan Wright's the side for this one. I wouldn't play a prop on this because, man, we don't know. Wright doesn't seem like, I know I'm a little biased against this guy, but he doesn't seem like he likes to get hit. He doesn't seem like he's the most durable guy. Some guys are just good at being the hammer and not good at being the nail. So I wouldn't play a prop because I think a KO is on the table. But, yeah, man, I'm going to go Jamie Pickett. I'm going to go by decision. But I do think a KO is on the table. Next up, we got Mike Grundy taking on Londo Venata. And, I got to tell you up front, I was a little concerned when I saw how Mike Grundy looked, this morning. Because, it looked like he might be having a little bit of a tough cut. And, Londo just always has them high spirits. But honestly, I was like, okay, well, maybe they're both having a tough cut. They both didn't look great. But, overall, I had Grundy in his last fight with Evalev, and, man, it was this close. We were so close. Also had a little something on the submission prop, so that broke my heart. He had him in that tight darce, and Mavzar is a beast, super high-level grappler himself. Was able to kind of just weather the storm. Grundy started to slow down. His striking's not the best, he's a wrestle boxer. But I think he burned his arms out heavy going for that choke, and just those early grappling. Got a little gassed. Evalev's a beast. I do think this is a bit of a step down from Evalev. I mean, Lando, dangerous guy in the feet. Obviously, we know. If you watch UFC at all, you know. The guy is super unorthodox, dangerous striker. Very well known for, landing some really good shots on Tony Ferguson before getting submitted. Knocking him down a couple times. But, obviously has fought a lot of tough guys, Yeah. Not like the elites, but like UFC vets. He's been fighting the UFC for a while now, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 UFC fights. So, he's been around and win some, lose some, but he's definitely a dangerous guy on the feet. Thing is, man, I just feel like as long as Grundy can just wrestle hard for 2 rounds, he's got this. This is a good stylistic matchup for him, especially as a slight favorite. I just feel like he's going to be able to take... Londo's footwork does make up for, he doesn't have the best wrestling, but his footwork and how quick and explosive he is definitely help him out in avoiding the takedown. But I just feel like, man, some guy like Grundy's wrestling is high level, and maybe Evelev could withstand it. Did get taken down sometimes, but maybe he could get through it and weather the storm. But I don't know, man. I feel like Londo, yeah, he's only 29, but I don't know, man. He's definitely been in some crazy fights, definitely taken a decent amount of damage for being so young in his career. And I don't know, I just feel like I haven't really loved how I've seen him his last couple of fights. Definitely made some money when Bobby fought him in the rematch. And, it just seems like Londo kind of peaked out already. Maybe he could turn it around, but I feel like Grundy's a pretty tough matchup for him. The only way I see Grundy losing this is if he just gasses a little too early. If he can just squeeze out those first 2 rounds, I think he can survive against Londo in that third. He's a super tough guy, can take a shot. I'm just going to be eyeing. That second round is going to be the big one because I think Grundy's going to pretty easily win that first. And then it's just a matter of, can he keep his gas tank going long enough to win the second? So I'm going to take Grundy. I'm going to take him by decision. I do think a submission is live, but I'm going to take him to just win the first 2 rounds, survive the third, takedown, rinse, repeat, takedown, rinse, repeat. Hopefully he can get some good control time in, but even if he can't, couple submission attempts, some ground and pound, secure the round. Let's keep it moving. Next up, we got Jockery Souza taking on Andre Muniz. And, this is a good fight. I definitely... I don't want to say... I don't get it. I do think that Jockery is being underestimated in this fight. Just straight up. The lines came up a little bit for him. I'm glad I got in on it already. But, what did I get it at? Minus 115. It's starting to go towards Souza. But I just feel like, man, in this fight, we're looking at, it's just recency bias, and I get it. He's older, 41. Some people are gonna look, oh man, 0-3 in his last 3, and 41. It must be, coming to an end for him. But Kevin Holland, okay, that was a freak knockout, man. He was securing the takedown. He was on top, looking pretty good. And I was counting my money. I'm not going to lie. I had money on Souza. I love Holland, but, it's business. Had money on Souza. And I was feeling pretty good, man. He got those early takedowns. But that was a freak shit, man. It's MMA. He got a little too comfortable. And Holland's got those freakishly long arms. He got a little too comfortable. And didn't realize he was still in the red zone. And got clipped. It happens. He's a high-level black belt. He's rolling all day. He just got a little comfortable. Got a little too comfortable there. And then before then, up a weight class against the light heavyweight champ. And then Jack Hermanson, that was a tough fight. Jack's pretty good fucking fighter himself. And then Chris Weidman fight, that was pretty big. Definitely was losing that fight until he got the knockout, but just proves he's still dangerous on the feet. You could give him that Gastelum fight, and it just goes on and on. Derek Brunson, Robert Whitaker, Tim Bosch, Vitor Belfort, Yoel Romero, Gegard Mousasi, Okami, Ed Herman, Derek Brunson again, Robbie Lawler, Luke Rockhold, Tim Kennedy. It just goes on and on, man. This guy, and not to mention he's a world champion black belt in jiu-jitsu. And then he's fighting Andre Muniz, who I made money on his last fight. I had him by submission over Fabinski. But, I like the guy. I don't want to, I'm a fan. And his style's dope. But he hasn't fought anybody really yet. You compare those resumes and it's like night and day. And, you go through the stats a little, and Muniz takedown defense is not good. And maybe some of the times he's just kind of allowing the takedown because he knows he's dangerous off his back. But you don't want to do that against Souza. And, I get he's 10 years younger. I get it. Maybe you could say, I don't think his striking's better than the Jockery's. Maybe he's younger, more athletic. Maybe at this point, in the later rounds that'll help him on the feet. But Jockery, man, he's got power in his shots, and he's probably the better striker in my opinion than Muniz. Muniz's striking isn't very great. It's not bad, but I wouldn't say he has like an advantage on the feet, especially not early. And then, can he take Jockery down? I don't know, man. He's not really like a very great wrestler. He's more like he's getting taken down a lot of these fights. So I think Jockery can take him down. I don't know if he'll be able to submit Muniz, but man, go out there and wrestle this guy. It's another one where I just feel like Jockery's got the wrestling advantage, overall jiu-jitsu advantage. Can Muniz submit him? Is he going to submit him with a guillotine off his back? I would be very surprised. I would just be happily hand my money over to the bookies and say, you got me. Because that's probably not going to happen. He's not going to knock Souza out, That's the way right now. You want to outlast this guy and, chin check him. But is Muniz going to chin check Souza? I don't see that happening. If I don't think he can submit him or knock him out. But I feel like Jockery could submit him. Probably won't happen, but could. And could knock him out. And he could win a decision and just out wrestle him. More paths to victory. And I just feel like he's the rightful. He should be like a solid minus 170 right here. Minus 180. I could see a scenario where he slows down and, I get that whole, everybody's talking about his age and all that, but, I just feel like he should be a bigger favorite in this. So I do have a unit on Souza, just straight, and I'm pretty confident in that bet. So I'm going to take Souza by decision. I think a knockout, and honestly, just a finish in general is on the table. It could be either. I would probably lean towards a knockout before a submission, though. Just ground and pound him or something. Maybe catch him with a big shot on the feet. But I'm going to take Souza by decision. And let's move on to the next fight, which is another banger. We got Shane Burgos taking on Edson Barboza. And this is going to be a fucking awesome fight, man. Shane Burgos coming off that fight with Josh Emmett. I'm glad he took a decent amount of time. I mean, how long ago was that? Yeah, I mean, solid, almost a year. And that's probably good because he took an enormous amount of damage in that fight. And he takes a lot of damage in all his fights, I love this guy. I'm a huge fan. Doesn't have the greatest head movement, though. Not really a big head movement guy. Kind of just I'll eat your shots and land two more. And doesn't have, crazy knockout power, but he overwhelms guys. Decent power, but he's not putting you out with one shot. He's overwhelming you. And his striking is good, man. He's fun to watch, and he doesn't give a shit about taking a shot. And, you got to wonder when that's going to, it has hurt him, obviously, already in the Cater fight, which, you could argue he was winning. It was a really good fight. And that Josh Emmett fight, that was crazy. He was mostly getting lit up, but dude has zero quit in him. He has the heart of a fucking warrior. Dude was just coming forward after getting just absolutely mollywopped with some shots. Okay, that's a bad word to use, but I'm literally a huge fan. This guy's, I'm so excited for this fight. But he is a savage, and he's fighting Barboza, who, man, that's a tough guy to have that style to. You don't want to let Barboza tee off on you. Yeah, and we've shown you want to wrestle Barboza, and if Burgos, obviously that's not his style. That's not what he's going to do. Two strikers here. So you got to overwhelm him. You can't let Barboza just do his thing. You got to get him on the back foot. And I think Shane Burgos has the style to do that. But at the same time, you don't want to get crazy. You don't want to get emotional. Like you're fighting a fucking sniper here. Mostly with his kicks, but his boxing's not bad either, Like he lands that right hand on you, man. He's explosive as hell, so he has power with his hands too. It's just mostly his legs that are doing a lot of the work. And I know you've seen a lot of red on this resume, but that's Dan Ige, Paul Felder, Justin Gaethje, Kevin Lee, and Khabib. Tony Ferguson, Michael Johnson, Donald Cerrone. Like, he's not losing to bums. And Barboza's a beast, man. He's so dangerous still. Someone's probably getting knocked out in this fight. But then again, I could see a scenario where, Burgos just outlands him. He's going to be throwing Burgos is the volume guy here. So as long as he's not getting knocked down, several times, he should be able to be up on the cards. And it's obviously not just knocked down, But as long as he's not getting, battered, I could see him just winning rounds off volume. It's just he's got to avoid those big shots. He's got to avoid those monstrous switch side kicks that Barboza is going to be just pelting him with. And, I said switch side kicks. Switch kicks. What? Yeah. He's got, the nastiest switch kick I've ever seen. It's so dirty. And he's going to be unleashing that to Burgos, who's just going to be trying to walk him down. But at the same time, that's what Burgos has to do. He can't get on the back foot. If you let Barboza start controlling the fight, he's just going to pelt you with kicks. Leg, high, low, medium, high, low, bro, you can't let this guy just start unloading on you because he's going to tear your shins up. He's going to tear your, shit. Luckily, he's not really someone who throws a ton of the calf kicks. That man needs to invest into just learning to throw that straight at the calves because, man, he'd be ending fights left and right the way these calf kicks are working lately. But especially with a guy like Burgos, he's definitely a guy you can definitely kick his legs if you want to. But, overall, it is, we have seen Burgos super hittable guy, and Barboza, that's what he would love to fight, anybody hittable who's going to bring that fight to him. But I do lean Burgos, but I do think, man, this is going to be a crazy fight. But if I had to pick somebody gun to my head, I would go Burgos. I do think the decision prop is possible, but I'm going to take late finish. He doesn't have a ton of knockout power, but I could see Barboza starting to slow down and Burgos getting a late finish. But I wouldn't play that prop because I would just play him straight if you're going to play him, because I actually do, even though I do understand why everybody thinks this fight's not going to decision, this and that, I could see Burgos just being, both these guys have chins, even when Barboza's been finished, it's when both these guys are getting finished by huge power punchers, I could see these guys making it the distance at the same time. So this isn't one I'd play the props. It is going to be a 3-round striking fight. Someone could definitely get clipped. I could also, if it goes to decision, I would lean Burgos. I'm going to go Burgos. I'm going to go Burgos by TKO. But let's move on to the next fight. Next up, we got Caitlin Chukagian taking Viviana Rujo. And Chukagian, man, in her last fight, definitely was able to just kind of nullify Cynthia's game, dominate her. Honestly, made it look pretty easy. In her fight before that, Andrade definitely did show that, if you have a decent speed advantage like that, Jessica was just so much faster and so much more explosive and powerful. Just ripped her to the body and ended that fight. And, you can't really give her too much shit for the Valentina fight. Valentina she's just a step above. And in a lot of these fights, she's actually getting, outlanded on, but she just looks good for the judges. Everybody was going to talk about it. She's another one kind of like Michelle Waterson, who will make a lot of noise even when she's not making contact, and it kind of gets blown up, and that people say that's like the only reason she's won some of these fights. Obviously, that doesn't hurt, but it's just like she's good. She'll wear shots pretty well typically. No, when Jessica Andrade's fight notwithstanding, you can't do anything about those body shots. Sometimes they just shut you off, but she's good at just like maintaining her distance, and yeah, it's not pretty. It's not what like some of y'all want to watch, but I mean, if you're just constantly like when you get hit, you don't react, but you're getting more reactions from your opponents, and you're landing some decent volume. Even sometimes she is getting outstruck, but I don't know, like her style, it just clearly works on the judges, and I mean. I do feel like on the feet, she's going to be throwing more volume. She's probably got the better gas tank. Araujo is going to have the better jiu-jitsu, but honestly, we've seen that Caitlin's doesn't have bad wrestling at all. I mean, I think Caitlin's like a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. She's no slouch. Araujo is going to be more dangerous for like the submission early. If she could get Caitlin down early, I could see a submission happening. But overall, I mean, as much as we look at Caitlin as a striker, she's proven, she's pretty well-rounded. And overall, I think the real play here is Caitlin by decision. I don't see this fight being finished unless Araujo completely gasses. I mean, she is dangerous early, but Chookagian's tough, man. I don't think she's going to finish her. I know we saw her get finished recently. That was Andrade and a nasty-ass Mike Tyson-like body hook. Okay, let me not compare her to Mike Tyson. I'm sorry. But... Araujo is dangerous early, but Chookagian's so tough. I feel like the play is Chookagian and get a better line. You go Chookagian by decision. It's not going to be too much better because the bookies are on it, but it's near even, I think, for that. And, I think that's the play here. I think that's the most likely outcome. Vivian is, she's dangerous, explosive early, but we've seen that gas tank is not the best, and she kind of relies on, even if she can't get the finish, just doing enough damage like early. And I don't know. I think Caitlin is going to look good in this fight. I think she's going to be able to maintain her distance, land good kicks. Just, it's going to be another one of those fights where you're like, oh, come on. Like, she's just, female tennis match, whatever. But, hey, she says it. Fans don't pay her bills. I mean, even though you could kind of argue they do a little bit because they're going to pay you more if the fans... But I get it, win fights, and you can't be denied. So, hey, I think she's gonna go in there. This is gonna be a little bit too much too soon for Vivian. So I'm gonna take Caitlin by decision, out volume her, probably gonna win a unanimous 30-27. Maybe she loses that first round. Next up, we got Matt Snell taking on Rogeria, Bonterin, and Bonterin was looking pretty good early in his last fight against Kai Kara France, but eventually Kai Kara gets back to his feet and, lands that bomb and just puts Bonterin out and face plants him. I know he was a little mad at the stoppage, but it's like, dude, you face planted, man. They got to stop that. If you headbutt the ground, they got to stop that. In this fight, though, he's fighting... Matt Snell doesn't have a ton of knockout power, more like a volume guy. And his jiu-jitsu is, definitely better than Kai Kara France training over there at ATT. One thing you could say about Snell is, might not be the most durable guy. Seems like, the chin isn't the absolute best. And I'm not like a lot of people who overblow that. Even some people are more and less durable, but I do think a lot of times people blow up bad defense to be, a chinny or something. But like with a prime example, Cody Garbrandt, like maybe at this point he's not as durable as he once was. But it's also like, man, if you're fighting TJ Dillashaw and your lead hand is at your hip when y'all are just exchanging hooks, like, you're fighting someone that powerful and explosive, and he's just teeing off on your chin with nothing there, probably going to go to sleep. Like, it's not really a chin thing. It's a bad defense thing. But I do think that Snell is somebody who just doesn't take a punch very well. Not the most durable guy. And, did get out of there with Tyson Nam, who's a big power puncher, and avoided all the big shots. Landed, more volume. And I can't really remember. I'd have to I feel like when I was watching that, definitely could go either way, but wasn't really scoring when I was watching that, and because I had Tyson on by KO, and so once it got to the end, all I was really hoping for the entire fight was him to knock him out, but going into this fight, I do feel like the ground it's gonna be tough for Bonterin to get that like early finish, especially with him not looking good at the weigh-ins and just looking like really super drained, and I could definitely see him slowing down. I think if he wins this fight, it's gonna be inside the distance, but I don't know. Even though you could say he definitely has power in his hands, he definitely could get to Snell's back, Rune could choke him. But I just feel like overall, I would lean Matt Snell to just defend his back, keep Bonterin off your back, avoid that big shot. You do those two things, you're gonna win this fight because you're gonna land a lot more volume, and I don't think Bonterin has the best gas tank already. Now you factor in a bad weight cut, and I just feel like this is gonna be Snell's fight to lose. I really do think he will. I think the main way he will lose is eating a big right hand on the feet, and the only other way he loses is if he gives up his back. But other than that, I think he wins the rounds pretty comfortably, especially the second and third. I think Matt Snell by decision. If you're going Bonterin, take Bonterin inside the distance because I really don't see him winning a decision against Matt Snell. And that's I'm gonna take Matt Snell by decision, but I mean that's gonna be another tough fight. All right, co-main event time. Let's go. We got Tony Ferguson taking on Beneil Dariush. I'm going to let you guys know right up front, I'm a little biased in this one. Tony Ferguson is my boy, so, it's tough. It's tough to try to completely set that aside. That being said, man, I just feel like, and I'm a big fan of Beneil too, let me say that. Tony's my favorite fighter, top 3. But Beneil is up there. He's, I don't know if top 10, but he's top 15. I really like the guy. So it's not like I dislike Dariush. But more importantly, the fucking technical aspect of the fight. I just want to get that out. Because y'all know I love me some T-Ferg. You go through his fights, and I mean, losing to Charles Oliveira, who's obviously fighting for the title. He didn't look great in that fight, though. Didn't look great in the Justin Gaethje fight, but I feel like Gaethje, there was so much going into that. The 2 weight cuts, the short notice opponent change, and you got a completely different style. And I just feel like Gaethje too, even all that aside, was the toughest matchup on paper for Tony. Because Tony's he's a great grappler, but he's not shooting a lot of takedowns. He wants you to bring the fight to the ground. So if you don't do that, Gaethje's not going to shoot. So it's going to play out on the feet. And then Gaethje just, man, first of all, especially the version that came in that fight, the best Gaethje we've ever seen, and he had the same approach since, I mean, just more measured now, not as chaotic, and that was, if you would have fought Tony that chaotic, I think that Tony would have been able to catch him. I think especially in those later, I mean, he did catch him. Justin even admitted he went to sleep there for a second, but Gaethje was able to just outstrike him, and Tony just stands right in front of you, man. He doesn't have the best head movement either. He's gonna stand right in front of you and just look to counter you. Let you hit him so he can get 2 off. Let you hit him so he can get 1 off into a front headlock. He wants to rock you, hit and club and sub you, and before then, people will say, oh, well, he didn't get to fight like the elite. But I mean, the Donald Cerrone fight, he was pretty dominant in that fight. Did get clipped a couple times by Pettis, but he was literally walking at Pettis, just insane. And it's not how you fight Pettis, and was able to kind of just break Pettis into a TKO. But and then Kevin Lee, people will say, oh, you mounted him. Yeah, the staph infection. Yeah, the staph infection is going to be more of a cardio thing. Doesn't mean that he can't go out there and have a good first round. And then also, it's Yeah, it's Kevin Lee's strengths, but Tony never looked like out of control there. It never looked like he was about to get finished. I think he was weathering the storm, and that's exactly what he did. He completely nullified RDA, and that was when RDA was. I mean, he looked good in his last fight, but that was when RDA was still killing it. And I mean, yeah, he got clipped a couple times by Londo, but for dude, that's how you Londo is super explosive, super unorthodox, and they just had an insane fight. And yeah, you're gonna get hit when you fight like that. I mean, Gleison Tebow, Josh Thompson, Edson Barboza, Abel Churrillo, Danny Castillo. These are good wins, man. And I mean, that Danny Castillo fight was tough. It was close, but Beneil Dariush, he's been on a good streak too. And Thiago Moises, he's kind of one dimensional, but that's a good fight, good win. Drew Dober, that's a good matchup for him, but hey, still went in there and submitted him. Frank Camacho, okay. Tony does bad things to him. Tony will do bad things to Jacare Close. Tony will do bad things to Scott Holtzman. Diego Ferreira, that's a good win. So it's really those first 5 were, I mean, can you imagine really what Tony's doing to Scott Holtzman and Jacare Close and Frank Camacho? Or Drew Dober? Thiago Moises? I mean, the hardest fight out of all of them might be Thiago Moises. Honestly. Maybe Jacare Close. But Diego Ferreira, that was a good win. He dominated him. And I like Beneil Dariush. I root for him. But, man, if he goes in there, he needs to go in there and try to just take Tony down. Because if he goes in there and wants to brawl and scrap, and like he's been saying in some of these interviews, I don't feel like this fight's going to go good for Beneil. And I think it's a little crazy that he was minus 175, minus 180 earlier in the week. I got Tony at plus 150. And I know I'm biased for the guy, but man, I just feel like plus 150? I mean, Beneil's looked great, but besides that Ferreira fight, it's these are lower level guys that Tony would finish easily. I get Tony has not looked great his last 2 fights, but I feel like that Justin fight, that was a very unique situation. So much going into it, and then I feel like it was the worst possible stylistic matchup in the entire division for him. But I mean, in that last fight, he definitely did not look great against Oliveira. But Oliveira also looked very great. So we're gonna find out. This is gonna be the fight where we find out if Tony is, on a bit of a downswing, or if Oliveira and Gaethje are just very good. My dog's snoring in the background. But overall, man, I'm gonna take Tony, and honestly, I think I'm gonna take Tony by TKO. I think Beneil, he gets a little crazy, and it's paid off for him a lot. But I think this is one where Tony could finish him. Tony could catch him and finish him. I think the submission will be hard. These are 2 high-level grapplers. If Beneil wins, he's gonna need to go out there and hit takedowns. He needs to take Tony down, do what Charles Oliveira did. Take him down, stay on top of him. When he's not hitting takedowns, clinch him like he did Carlos Ferreira. And I mean, but if he just strikes with Tony the whole time, I think Tony's throwing more volume. Tony will be able to. Not to mention, he doesn't look great at the weigh-ins either. He's not looking great right now. So he's looking a barely made weight. It probably could have been a pretty rough cut. That's not gonna help him. If this was 5 rounds, he'd be in some trouble. But he's going to need to wrestle Tony for those first 2 rounds, because I think that third, if it's 1-1 going into third, I'm going to be very confident. So I'm going to get Tony by KO, but I think a decision is also on the table. Next up, we got the main event. Make sure you leave a like on the video. Make sure you comment. Let me know your picks. That's most important. I like to see who you guys got. Just don't be afraid to disagree with me either. I'm cool with that. But appreciate you watching this far. Let's get into this main event because I'm excited for it. We got Charles Oliveira taking on Michael Chandler for the lightweight strap. We got Charles Oliveira on an 8-fight win streak. Only one of those a decision. Finished Clay Guida. Finished Christos Giagos. Finished Jim Miller. Finished David Timur. Finished Nick Lentz. Finished Jared Gordon. Finished Kevin Lee. And then won a decision dominantly over T. Ferg. Um, pretty insane stuff. But, and this is another guy that I love. A lot of my favorite fighters on this card. Charles Oliveira is my boy. But you do got to say, and I hate to say it, not the highest level this streak, Jared Gordon, Nick Lentz, David Timur. Jim Miller is an absolute vet. That was a good win. But, obviously where Jim Miller is now in his career, still a good fighter. But he's not like at that elite. And that's a tough matchup for him. Christos Diagos, yeah, of course, yeah, he's going to do that to him. Clay Guida, the point of his career now, These aren't like the toughest fights. And these are guys that I think Michael Chandler would also finish. Maybe not all of them. I don't think he'd finish all of them like Charles Oliveira did. Dude has the most submissions for a reason. But one thing I would say about Charles Oliveira is probably the more technical guy in this fight. Probably has the upper hand in almost every attribute besides power. And I would say his striking defense isn't the best. While I do think neither of these guys have like the greatest chin. I don't think they have bad chins, but they have both been proven, they can be finished. That's not something that I would give them as a strength. Maybe not a weakness either, but, not the most, iron chins. But Charles Oliveira's striking has gotten better, but he stands so straight up that somebody as explosive and like powerful as Michael Chandler, I could see clipping him. I don't know. Man, I really want to go with Oliveira because I feel like on the ground he's going to have the advantage. On the feet, he's going to throw more volume. He's got more weapons. His kicks, elbows, knees, punches, like he'll snap you down to a guillotine. I could see a guillotine happening. But if I had to pick one route of victory, the most likely scenario, I just see that I don't think this fight's going to go very long. I think somebody's going to get finished. And I feel like in that first round or two, man, especially that first round, that right hand from Chandler, Oliveira stands so straight up. He's the more technical striker, but I could see Chandler blasting him over the top. My heart says Oliveira, but man, and it's nothing against Chandler, but I just, I'm an OG in this, watching this in the MMA and UFC, and Oliveira, like I've seen ups and downs. I'd love to see him, get that belt, get that strap. The streak he's on is so impressive, and it would kind of pain me to see somebody just come over in their second fight and take that belt. But, it's not that Chandler hasn't, it's been a different promotion, but, he's been grinding himself. He's taken some tough losses, but, Patricio Pitbull, it's a weight class below, but he's still a really good fighter. And that Brett Primus fight was a little crazy. Yeah, you could argue this isn't like the toughest competition, but, he still went in there and did what he had to do in most of these fights. Has some losses, but definitely a great fighter. Would never take that from him. But as much as I do feel like Charles Oliveira probably matches up better against more of the top lightweights, I think he's the more technical guy in almost every aspect of the fight. I just feel like, man, there's a good chance that Chandler's just going to blast him over the top like he did Dan Hooker. That left hook or that right hand. And overall, I'm going to have to take Chandler as a slight underdog by knockout. But I do feel like this is a coin toss, man. If anything, I might bet like the under 3.5, one of the unders. But I haven't bet on the main event yet because I just want to watch this as a fan, man. I'm excited for this fight. If I'm being honest, would I have preferred Charles Oliveira against Dustin Poirier? Yeah, I would. But now we got this fight, which is a banger. We're going to see exactly what Chandler really has. And then we're going to get Dustin versus Conor next. So I'm excited for it, man. My heart says Charles, but my head says Chandler by KO. If he doesn't get that finish in those first two rounds, though, I do think, even though Oliveira showed gas tank issues in the past sometimes, it feels like it's gotten a lot better. And I feel like in this matchup, that in the later rounds we might see more where Chandler's going to have to wrestle, going to have to put him up against the cage. That's when you, even if he just wants to put him up against the cage for a breather because he's been throwing these hard, heavy shots, you could see that's when Oliveira snaps him down, guillotine. A guillotine couldn't, man. Dude's got a dirty guillotine. As a guillotine lover, I love to see it. And that's probably how, if I could pick any way for this fight to go, no offense to Chandler, it would be a sexy guillotine from Oliveira. But if I had to pick, gun to my head, I think Chandler by KO would be how I would take it. So that's going to be my pick for the fight. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll be back next week. I appreciate everybody sending well wishes over the COVID shit. I was pretty much fine. My back hurt. I was real sore. That's why I just thought I was overtrained and I had allergies, and then I found out I had COVID. I literally said on one of these videos, I know I sound sniffly, but I don't have COVID. Also, sorry about the green screen on this video. I fucked my lighting up for this video somehow before the video started, but sorry about that. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment, hit me up on Twitter, all that good stuff. I'm going to be live during the fights as always. Let's make some money. Enjoy the fights. Hopefully you come and watch it with us. It's always fun. I will see y'all then. This video ran a little long, but it is a dope pay-per-view. Had to go a little bit more in depth, and I think I rambled a little bit too, but sorry about that. I will catch y'all next week. Not competing this time so I can watch the fight, so I'll see y'all then. See you tomorrow.